to be at a table. The table is full.
Table 32?
Is that the back table?
Yeah, how is that possible?
I made a mistake. I took Rabbi's name to come.
Fine, sit down, you're okay. I don't
We're
know.
supposed to be here at table 20.
Got it. So go to 32 is great. Hygiene,
Yes. They just walked out.
Good evening, everyone. Everyone could please find their seats. We're going to get the program started. Thank you. Thank you. On behalf of myself and the Board of Trustees, I want to welcome everyone here tonight. And, I planned on getting to the thank yous a little bit later, but, well, my speech is going to be really short, so there isn't much of it later. But I'm just overwhelmed by how amazing this is, so I'm going to get right to it. Thank you to Kadosh Baruch Hu for letting us gather tonight. This is really amazing. Looking around this room, looking around this room and so many people gathered together, the pre-event was just phenomenal. So I do have a list of people that I want to thank. Specifically, this is not all-inclusive. If you'll just please hold your applause till the end of the list. Thank you. Glad everyone's paying attention. Okay. So this event took a lot of work from a lot of people, and it's really just a beautiful, incredible event. First of all, I'd like to thank Rabbi Tendler. So I guess we're not holding our applause. I want to thank Sarah Fady Berkowitz, Sarah Davis, and Leah LaBelle from the Shul staff. I want to thank Ms. Elena Hertzberg for the decor, and EB Catering for the outstanding food. So we find ourselves gathered this evening on Lag BaOmer. Amongst other things, Lag BaOmer is the day in which we recognize the yahrzeit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was one of the most prolific Tanaim of the period of the Gemara. And there was a time in his life when he was banished. He was had a death warrant from the Roman government, and he was forced to exile himself and hide in a cave for 13 years. And after those 13 years, he had a sign from Hashem that it was time to come out of the cave, to come out and inspire the Jewish people. We have found ourselves over the last few years exiled into a cave where we couldn't gather for a dinner like this. And Baruch Hashem, we're getting to the point where we can emerge and we can be together. And we're here tonight to imagine what our future can be like. We're on the verge of celebrating our 80th year in just a year from now, and our future is bright. I walked through the shul on Shabbos, and we are teeming with young people. And it's so exciting to see them and to think about what our future has in store for us. But that future is built upon a solid foundation, and we're so thankful and honored to have the people who built that foundation here with us tonight. Rabbi and Rebbitzin Emanuel and Estelle Feldman. It's my pleasure to call upon Rabbi Ilan Feldman to share a few words and to facilitate a conversation with his parents as we remember our past and look towards our future.
Thank you, Matt. And the Mazel Tov should go to Matt and family on the upcoming wedding of their daughter Ilana, just a week or so away. Mazel tov. And yasher koach to our president for taking on a responsibility for his shul in a wonderful and gracious way, and who has made such a difference to me and to others in the shul because of his leadership, which came even before he was president, but certainly was brought to the fore in a powerful way as president during a time of great crisis for the whole country, really, with the pandemic, and certainly here in the shul. And yasher koach, Matt, thank you so much for your leadership and for your partnership. You know, we ought to charge just for every one of you to take a chance to stand up here and look at the whole gathering. It's just so beautiful and moving. Miriam and I are just remarking about how wonderful it is to be able to connect with everybody and to feel the togetherness, be able to be here again. And what's amazing is that there are people here who have been along for the ride, who built this shul and invested in this shul, shared themselves for 30, 40, 50 years, 60 years. And there are people who just arrived very recently, who snuck in during COVID. I don't even know your names yet, because you were hiding. And you already make a difference to the community. And you will be the builders of the future. So really wonderful to have all that together in one room. And we owe HaKadosh Baruch Hu an expression of thanks. And what I feel here in the room tonight is more than just excitement to be together. I feel love. I feel love for the shul. I feel love for at least the Rabbi and Rebbitzin Emeritus. And I feel love for each other. So it's really wonderful to be together and to have this celebration of just our community. The room is really just a first-class room. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's wonderful to come in here every Shabbos for Kiddush. This does not look like the room that we come into for Kiddush. Nothing wrong with Kiddush, but this is absolutely stunning. Yasher koach to everybody who is involved. It's a first-class undertaking, first-class dinner, first-class membership, first-class facility, first-class office staff and volunteers, and the first-class executive director who really brought all this together, Rabbi Taylor. Yasher koach. And I have to tell you, thank you very much. I was waiting for that. Thank you. You know, when COVID hit, I was very concerned because how do you have a shul without coming to shul? I think we all discovered that you can have a shul without coming to shul. We had a shul without coming to shul. And the reason we're here tonight is because COVID didn't interrupt anything. It changed the way we behaved, but it did not sever our connection to Hashem, didn't sever our connection to each other, didn't sever our connection to the future. And therefore, it's really a night for celebration. I want to take a moment, even though we are so thrilled to be together, and thank God it's under wonderful circumstances, but we have to remember, first of all, there are people in the world currently, including our brothers and sisters, who are not at home, who are, because of war, are refugees in the thousands and thousands. We also want to take a moment just to think about the families who still suffer eternally for the loss that occurred in Lag BaOmer last year. And I hate to throw a damper on everything, but it's part of our responsibility is to be aware of what's going on in the Jewish people. And thank God that this year's gathering in Meron was organized well, precautions were taken, rules were followed, and everybody had a real Kiddush Hashem there as they celebrated the yard site of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. But we want to keep in mind the families of the 45 people who were lost last year, only a year ago. And I want to say one thing about COVID. First of all, I want to acknowledge not just my partner, but be greater than a partner, Rabbi and Mrs. Foxbunner, who were just unbelievable. unbelievable the way that they shouldered responsibility and executed and took care of so many things that had to be taken care of in order for us to be able to provide the right leadership for our community during a very, very difficult and trying time. And there's no question that whatever leadership I provided couldn't have been effective without Rabbi and Mrs. Foxbrenner, who tended to our flock with loving care all the way through and executed beautifully, and Yasher Koach. And we tonight, first of all, I'm going to let you in on a secret. I want everybody to help me tonight. This past Shabbos, I gave a very, very complex and intense drasha. And afterwards, on the way home, I was walking with my father, and he said, that was really an important message. And then he stopped and he said, when will you learn to pause between thoughts? So I said to him, you're right, it's something I work on. That's a code word for something I fail on. I've been doing this for a long time, for 31 years, and I don't pause. So you're going to help me pause. If I go from one thought to another, somebody just raise their hand and say, wait a minute, I need to absorb what you just said, okay? So, end of part one. Let's pause for a second. Am I doing well? Okay. So here we are tonight. We're going to have a conversation in a minute with my parents, Rabbi and Mrs. Emanuel Feldman. It's unrehearsed. We have not staged it. They haven't told me what to ask. I haven't told them what I'm going to ask. I certainly don't know what they're going to answer. Not only that, they may ask me something. I may offer something even when I'm not asked. I've been known to have opinions about things. And so we're going to have a very important conversation. But let's ask the ultimate question. What are we doing talking about the past again? We're not a show that celebrates the past. We should be celebrating the future. So why are we, many of you probably know the stories that my father and mother are going to tell. You've heard them before. And you want to hear them again. You love every word that comes out of their mouth. I know that. But what are we going to do this for? And those of you who haven't heard them, okay, that's great. That was 1955. That was 1965. That was 1975. Why are we talking about that now? So I want to tell you that there's a pasuk in the Chumash that directly was written for tonight's dinner. The pasuk was stated by Moshe Rabbeinu on somewhere towards the very end of his life. And Moshe Rabbeinu is saying farewell to the Jewish people, and the Jewish people are on the verge of entering Eretz Yisrael, the promised land. Eretz Zavas Chalav Dvash, a land flowing with milk and honey. And they're going to have a Beis Hamikdash. And they're going to have a life where they, 3 times a year, they rendezvous with God. They're going to have the dynasty of David HaMelech. They're going to have Shlomo HaMelech. So much promise, such a wonderful future. I'm pausing. I did. And Moshe Rabbeinu turns to them and says, Sha'al avicha v'yagedcha zekeinecha v'yom melach. Ask your father, and he will tell you, your elders, and they'll relate to you. And Rashi right there on the spot says, because you haven't focused on the goodness of the past, you don't know well enough that God will lead you to the Mashiach and to Olam Haba. So in order for us to be able to focus on our future and to become inspired about what we can build and what we can accomplish, it's really important for us to be able to hear about the past. How did we get here? How did God bring us to this point? And so, for that, I invite my parents. Abba, Mom, please come forward. And we're going to pause because it takes them a little longer to move from place to place than it used to. It's okay. And then we'll begin our conversation. Let's do a mic test. Abba, can you make sure people hear you? Talk. Say something intelligent.
I think you're not.
Eat the microphone.
It's been unbelievable.
Closer. Much closer.
It's been unbelievable. I'm not used to using a microphone because the rabbi doesn't let us use a microphone.
Maybe hold it this way.
I don't know. You know what? Try this.
Is it working?
I'll just share with you, Estelle and I have not been here since COVID began, 2.5 years ago. Usually we used to come once or twice a year to make sure that the rabbi wasn't running the shul into the ground. But this time we had no opportunity to come at all because of COVID. And so when I walked into shul the first time last week, a number of thoughts cascaded through my mind. First of all, that the main sanctuary is still as beautiful as it ever was. It really is a spiritually beautiful construction. And I felt it all over again as I walked in there. I was amazed at the tremendous spiritual growth of the community, the learning of Torah. There was, last Shabbos, there were 6 Shabbos minyanim all over the building. Every morning there are 4 minyanim. For ordinary weekday shoppers, it's a pleasure because you can miss a minyan, no one will miss you, they'll think you're in the other minyan. It's a wonderful shul.
It took me a full month to figure that out. You got that in 1 week.
So anyway, it's been a great thrill. I don't want to take a lot of time. I literally mean it's been an exciting time to be here, to meet our old and young and new friends, and Yeshikoyach, and a great and hearty thank you to each one of you who have built up this community, because it's more than a shul, it's a community, into what it is today, the influence and the entire community, and the inspiration to many, many shuls around the world. That's all I'll say for now. I'm sure there'll be some other things that Rabbi Lon's going to ask his daddy to speak to about.
And his mommy. And I will tell you as well, by the way, I've got a timer here. We're in 3.5 minutes in, and I haven't even asked a question, and my father gave an answer. That's amazing.
And if I might add,
Yes, Mom.
you don't have to ask me, I'm going to add. I just thank Hashem for allowing us to come back. I feel it as an extra bracha that Hashem has given us, that after all these years, and nearly, Baruch Hashem, 70 years that we came here, that I'm still allowed to come back here, and I'm still allowed to say hello. And we have so many people that go back decades with us, and that are here tonight. And so it's an extra blessing from Hashem, in addition to our own family, Baruch Hashem. So we're very grateful.
And Miriam and I are grateful to be able to literally have you in our house. It's a tremendous schus. And as a rabbi, I will tell you that I am around people who don't have the benefit and the pleasure and the gift that I have of being my age and having youthful old parents. All right, so let me ask you a question. Watch out, Junior, let's make sure she doesn't fall off the stage. Okay. All right, so let me ask you a simple question, both of you. What was it like when you got here in 1952?
In 1952, when I first came to Atlanta, I was engaged to be married to this young lady. That was in August of 1952, and I was just turning 25 years old of age. The shul was very, very small. It wasn't much of a shul. It was about 30 or 40 members. One down on Boulevard, which is near Georgia Baptist Hospital today. And Atlanta was a sleepy southern town with potential for growth. And we made a shidduch. In other words, they thought I might be okay for them, and I thought for a year or two I might be able to learn to be a rabbi. As a matter of fact, my father, who was a rabbi in Baltimore for many years, encouraged me to take this small opportunity because he said in a couple of years you learn to be a rabbi, then you go on to other larger pulpits. So, but I convinced Estelle that I'm only going to be here for 2 years. You must remember, is from Brooklyn. That means New York. That means the world does not exist beyond the Hudson River. And her family thought, wow, you're going to Atlanta, wow. So I convinced her and her parents that it'd be only a couple of years and then we'll be somewhere else. So I was learning to be a rabbi. I can't help it if I'm a slow learner. It took me 39 years. I'm still learning to be a rabbi. Want to say something about that?
Well, yes, because my husband had a choice of being somebody's assistant rabbi. It happened to be a subway ride away from my home in Borough Park. I grew up in a very insular community. It was literally half Italian, half Jewish, but we just had our own little insular community. And here I was going out into the wilderness somewhere. Anything anybody knew about Atlanta, Georgia was just Gone with the Wind, and that's all I knew. And that I'll be gone with the wind when I get on a train. Who knows when they'll see me again. So I was a little scared about coming, but my husband said, no, we'll be there a couple of years. So I said, I could do a couple of years. That's okay with me. And so we did come. We were married in November, so my husband was already in the congregation and serving, and came back to marry me and bring me back around Hanukkah time. So thereby hangs a tale. There's all sorts of stories about coming back, coming here, and coming to the South.
So, Jewishly, what was it like over here? When you came down, was it like, I don't know, were there sperm stores? Was there a Shalom Zara every Friday night? Were there Jewish weddings all the time? What was the story of Jewishly? What was going on here?
Jewishly, it was basically non-existent Jewishly.
Closer to your mouth, please.
The shul itself had about 30 or 40 members, and most of them were retirees. In those days, I thought a retiree was very old, but now I realize it's not true. Yiddishkeit was totally non-existent in the community at large, not just in our shul, but throughout the community. So I knew I had my work cut out for me, but basically I tried just to get through each day doing what a rabbi is supposed to do, which is to lead the community and teach them, and let the Holy One above, who has also an interest in the growth of the community, let him do his share of the work as well.
And I had no experience as a Rebbitzin. I was 20 years old. There wasn't a Rebbitzin in our family. There weren't any rabbis in our family. I had no rabbinical experience whatsoever in any form. And so when I came here at the age of 20, not only that, there wasn't a woman in our shul who was younger than 40. I didn't have a single person that I could relate to on my own level. And of course there were not many observant people here either. So I found myself in a milieu that was entirely different than what I had grown up with. I always think back and say that, thank God, where I grew up with a family of uncles and aunts and cousins, all in a neighborhood that gave me the strength, because I had so much support growing up. I think it gave me the strength to be all alone when I first came, because it was very lonely for somebody who's 20 years old and just married, and whose husband is very, very involved in his new congregation. But I can say this, that the women of the shul were so warm and so loving, they sort of adopted me, I think, as a mascot. That's what I think. They made me feel very welcome. They were warm and loving and respectful, nevertheless. And so I kind of learned on the job. And that's how I found, that's how I'm feeling that same warmth, that same love, only more so, because it's only more intense as we went along through the years. So that same warm, loving atmosphere that existed even in the beginning is very much here, and very much felt here tonight particularly.
And I'll just say that if you notice any character trait in me that you like, it's because of my mother. I'll tell you that. Now, I'm going to ask you a challenging question. I've heard you say many times that you had no grand plan, no big vision, no goal to build a whole community. You were just going to do day by day what needed to be done. So I have a kasha. If so, how did it end up growing if the man at the top had no plan? How did the show end up growing if the man at the top had no plan? You are the leader, and you had no plan.
It is a challenging question, and sometimes I wonder how that happened. I was fortunate that I was...
Closer, please, to the mic.
I was not, as some people think, a 25-year-old visionary who came to Atlanta with dreams of building an Orthodox community. It's just not true. My wife will tell you that it's not true because I've told her the same thing in the privacy of our home. My goal was simply to be the best rabbi I could. Not to build anything per se, but simply to bring people, individuals, couples, closer to their responsibility as Jews, to speak to their souls, to their neshamas, to raise them up, to elevate them. And primarily, my main problem was that the community I was dealing with, my shul, was embarrassed by the term Orthodox. They didn't want to have that nomenclature at all. They wanted me to do things that the non-Orthodox rabbis were doing, such as wearing a black priestly robe on Friday night and Shabbos and that type of thing, and blessing the congregation even though I'm not a Kohen, and doing a number of other things, and having like 75% services in English, which I resisted. The illogic of it was, look how successful the other congregations are when the rabbis do that. If we do that, we'll also be successful. It was totally illogical. In any case, day by day, person by person, Jew by Jew, or as we say, yidel by yidel, things grew and developed and became something that we have today. Because Beth Jacob is not just a shul. Beth Jacob is today not just, it never was, simply a place to daven mincha and Ma'ariv. Beth Jacob is a unique place, in my view, and in the view of many others, which is a community in its own right. And you think about the various things that have been founded and begun by you, the shul. I mean, the Hebrew Academy, Yeshiva High School, Torah Day School, to name just a few. Kollel, the kashrus of the city. All of it originated here. And you should be proud of that. And that didn't come from any vision or dream of the rabbi. It just came because people responded to integrity and to genuineness. And that's the secret of it. To be a genuine Jew, to be an authentic Jew, not to play games with the Yiddishkeit, and the neshama responds to that.
Thank you for that. Bob, anything to add? Or you don't have to add?
I always felt that there were people that even to this day may not be observant, but they always responded to the genuine feeling that they had. They knew they were getting the real thing, even if they didn't take it whole, even if they didn't take it all. But when there were people that just one by one, we started with very few people, and all you needed was one or two people who were examples to other people. So it's an old theory called each one teach one, and all you had was one couple or two couples, and they had an influence on another couple, and it became very slowly, day to day, exponential. But it wasn't the kind of thing that we expected to just blow up and happen all at once. We just thank God. And of course, every time we were tempted to leave the community, when we did see more progress, inch by inch, it kept us here. We kept seeing progress. And we kept seeing people's connections and making more connections. And that's what encouraged us. So I always say it works both ways. It works from us to you and from you to us.
I always felt that, building a community is like planting grass in your front yard. You throw out seeds, and sometimes weeds come up, but most of the time grass comes up. You just have to be patient, which we were, and you will find results.
So let me ask you a personal question in front of all these people. First of all, pay no attention to the people behind the curtain, okay? Did you ever hope, dream, or plan for your son to succeed you? Ever hope or dream or plan for me, your son, to succeed you?
No, we never thought of that per se. We always thought that our son, you, it happens to be you. Which reminds me of a joke I once started with a sermon on Shabbos. The funniest line I ever gave from the sermon on Shabbos, which I must interject because I want to share. Dr. Ed Galler, may rest in peace, was the president of the show. He was sitting next to me. Dr. Galler was sitting next to me. He was a brilliant fellow and a good doctor and a fine president of the show. I said, Ed, watch the congregation's face after I say the first line of this sermon. And I started the sermon by saying, in this week's portion of the Torah, God, whom you may recall from last week's version, that to me was the funniest line in my entire So, my wife and I, we always felt that our son had the qualifications qualifications to be a rabbi, to be a good rabbi. He was always compassionate. He was always caring. He was learned. He had all. You want to hear more? He's conducting. And we felt that he would be a rabbi. We never dreamed or planned that he should be the rabbi here. But somebody should be a rabbi. You know. Then when it came time for us to retire, and I retired at a rather early age for retiring. I think I was 62 or something like that. He was already my assistant rabbi, and it was a natural choice. The shul, however, did open up the pulpit to other candidates, but I was confident that he was the best candidate around, and my confidence has been, fulfilled. I think he's a very good rabbi, but that's of course objective. So I think there's some people here who didn't applaud. What's going on? Okay. His mother may want to add something.
I always have something to add. Sorry. No, I do remember that when our son, he and his wife were in Colel together in Baltimore, and when he called us up one day and said, I think now I'm ready to go out, and I do want to be in the rabbinate, I remember our feeling great hesitation, and one of the things we said right away was, you know, you may end up in a different shul, not the wonderful, beautiful, warm shul that you grew up in. If you want to be a pulpit rabbi, you may not get a place like the one that you grew up in and loved and felt so much love. You may be taking a chance and getting something entirely different. So we felt like we had to warn him that not every shul is like this. And I feel like not any shul is like this. That's what I feel. So thank God he did, Baruch Hashem, end up right here on Mayaveh Street.
I will only add that I've said this many times, Rabbi Foxborough knows, I've said this to him personally many times, that I would last around 7 hours in almost any other Orthodox synagogue in the United States. So God bless you for creating a Shulchan Aruch over here, and thank God, at least from my end, it's a wonderful shul. So while we're telling pulpit stories and sermon stories, I have to tell my story. So one Shabbos morning, I noticed how many men were sleeping during my sermon. It was more than normal.
A minion sleeping?
What's that?
A minion sleeping?
No, there was only a minion in shul. It was 8 people, 8 out of 10. No, it was an unusual, there were always men sleeping, but this was an unusual amount. And so I noted in my sermon that it's not really the men's fault, because around sermon time at 10 o'clock in the morning, the sun shines through the window panes over my left shoulder, and the men are squinting in order to hear the sermon, to see the sermon. So their eyes are already half closed, so it doesn't take much to fall asleep. Okay, I said what I said, and I forgot about it. The next week, I get up to speak, and the court jester, we all know the court jester about Jacob, Rabbi Norman Schloss, had passed out sunglasses to everybody in the men's section. And he had a particularly huge set of sunglasses that went like from here to here, and he sat in the front row like this. And I tried to start my sermon, which was, relatively serious. And even though I don't normally pause during my sermons, I had no choice but to pause. And I said, all right, guys, you got me. So that was a lot of fun. All right, got time for maybe another question. So listen, we're here to imagine and to be excited about our future. So what would you tell us about our future? I mean, you're not a Navi, but you're the closest thing we have to a prophet. So what would either of you say about our shul and its planning for its growth, for its future, for what's coming next? What would you say?
There's already a major foundation for the future in the shul as it is now. I don't have an idea what the future will hold, but the future I would love to see for this community is to become an even more powerful force, not only in the community at large, which it already has been. By the way, I neglected to mention that we also helped found the Kollel. Earlier when I mentioned the list of things that we did, the Kollel is a major force in the community with young men who are brilliant and learned to do many things, spend their time studying Torah and teaching Torah. But in any case, the future that I see would be not only for the community at large to be affected by us, but for each individual to take it upon himself to worry about the community, to think about the community at large, to think about what impact each individual could have on other Jews. And because, as I mentioned earlier, it's not just a place, the shul is not just a place to go daven, it's a place where we want to spread the knowledge and the love of our Creator. And that we do by example, by being more intensive Jews, more learned Jews, and spreading the word of study and dedication, which we have, Baruch Hashem, in such great abundance in our community.
Mom, anything to add at all?
No, I think that's it. That's the vision in itself.
Yeah.
See, I think after a while, we learned to articulate a vision. We always knew we had it, and I'm still learning. I was telling someone a sentence came to me, which I've known all my life somehow, but I never knew to articulate it. And this is when I think that we came to Atlanta and have been in Atlanta and are in Atlanta, and now we're in Yerushalayim and then we're back in Atlanta. And this is one sentence that came to me that is so important, and that is, you are where you are, whoever you are. You are exactly where Hashem wants you to be. No matter what that is, no matter how difficult it may be, or maybe especially beautiful, but where you are now is exactly where Hashem wants you to be. I've sort of always known that, but that sentence came to me. So as we grew more mature, we learned more to articulate goals. I think we always had goals, but we never articulated them in the same way. As we get more mature, we know more about ourselves and where our goals are.
Thank you. So everybody knows what a softball question is. Here comes the ultimate softball. How long are you planning to be here?
This is a family joke, but whenever we come to visit Atlanta, invariably, the person says hello, and he says, how long are you going to be here? Invariably, I say, that's a question only God can answer. No one knows how long he's going to be here. So it's a serious question. You have a bunch of philosophers in your community there. Everybody's asking, not only how long are you here, but people also ask, why are you here? Which is even more philosophical, even more profound. Why are you here? Why did Hashem put you here? What are you doing here? What's your purpose in life? Just to eat and sleep? And what? I mean, why are you here? It's a tough question. And I know why I was here. I was here to come to Atlanta, Georgia, as an innocent young man, and to watch as I stood at the deck of the ship, and to watch as the ship went from shallow waters to deep waters. It grew one deck after another, and became what it is today, despite what I was doing down there. I was at the wheel, but so what? somebody above us was taking care of us and guiding the ship. And I was fortunate, my wife and I were both fortunate to be at the wheel when it all happened. But it's simply not true, as I began earlier, that all of this is the responsibility of one or two people. That's about it. Why? How long will you be here? No one knows. Why are you here? Everyone should ponder that. Robertson, why are you here?
Well, I know why I was here originally. I was just following the love of my life, that's all. I didn't care who I was or what I was. I was just following him, just went along, whenever he wanted and wherever he wanted. That was my first goal.
There are very few synagogues in the United States where the rabbi has a son who's also the rabbi, you know. And the rabbi, where I had a father who was a rabbi in a pulpit. And you have to have a certain mishugas to be a pulpit rabbi. You can't be a normal person to be a rabbi. Because the rabbinate is all-embracing, all-consuming, overwhelming. Somebody today asked me in the office, how are you, Rabbi? And I said, I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed with many, many things, by the love, by the friendship, by the demands, by the, can I see you for a few minutes? I walk down the hall and a lady sees me, she hasn't seen me in a year, 2 years and a half. She says, Rabbi, I have to see you. I haven't been here in 2.5 years, but she has to see me. Amazing. I'm flattered by that. At any rate, in answer to your softball question, how long will you be here? Only God knows.
So, and looking back at everything that you represent, everything you've presided over, everything that you've caused, everything that you've nurtured, the message that I come away with is that if you put the shovel in the ground, all kinds of miraculous edifices can come out of it. And I remember, I'll share the last thing here. The last time that my father and I co-officiated at a funeral, I don't know if you remember this, the last time in 1991 when my father was still the rabbi and I was about to become the rabbi, and we co-officiated at a funeral. It was the funeral of a past president who did not keep kosher, who was certainly not observant of Shabbos, who stuck his neck out for this shul many, many times, actually wrote payroll checks from his own personal account when the shul had no money. And I remember at the time, we both felt that whatever was going on in 1991 was built on his shoulders. So I would say to you gathered here tonight, you each have shoulders upon which your children and your children's children, or someone else's children, or someone else's children's children will be standing because of your investment in the community. It's not a question of purchasing a share of the shul for you. It's a question of your investment in the shul for people you don't even know. But they will gather one day on a Lag BaOmer, 50, 60, 70 years later, and they will celebrate the fact that we had the courage to continue with verve and with devotion building this community. Thank you very much for that message.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi Feldman and Rabbi Feldman. At this time, dessert is available in the back of the room, I believe. Everyone should take their dessert, and then we're going to get seated again for a special musical presentation.
So,